Hello and welcome to another community conversation. It's Friday at noon and we are on Facebook Live and on HBG Channel 20 in the city of Harrisburg. I'm Mayor Eric Pappenfuss. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking not only with Jerry Fieser, who is the Director of Elections for Dauphin County, about the upcoming election, but we'll also be talking about the census, and we'll be joined by Stephen Shope, who is a partnership coordinator with the U.S. Census Bureau, and Jeffrey Knight, who is the Director of Planning here at the city and also the head of our Census Outreach Committee. We will also be joined again by Superintendent Selmer with the Harrisburg School District, and we'll get some updates from them. I do want to begin, however, with some announcements, and let's start with perhaps the most serious of the announcements, which has to do with the fact that while we are transitioning to yellow officially today in Dauphin County in the city of Harrisburg, and while more and more people are going to be coming out, we still have to be cautious when we're out in public. We still need to practice social distancing. We're encouraging everyone to wear masks and to wash their hands, and just to generally recognize that we are not through the woods yet when it comes to coronavirus. We do want to support these businesses that have been struggling, and I'll have some updates here shortly about some things that we're going to be doing to help bring people out, but we need to do it safely. And last week I shared with you some data that we had collected through a process called Wastewater Epidemiology, and it basically tests the amount of coronavirus in the city's wastewater to give us an understanding of the prevalence of the virus in the city population. And since last week and this week, we've actually seen an increase of over 1% in people that currently are carrying the virus, which means another 500 people in the case of Harrisburg have contracted the virus and are carrying the virus, for a total of 2,800 people in the area, which is roughly 1 out of every 20 people in the city of Harrisburg currently have coronavirus. That is much, much higher than the statistics that are being reported through the Department of Health that are based on testing. Indeed, the cumulative testing case count for all of Dauphin County for the entire period of the pandemic is less than the current case count by a wide margin just in the city of Harrisburg, based on the wastewater epidemiology. It also shows that we are increasing in terms of the overall number of cases in the city of Harrisburg, and that we are really in the higher echelon of municipalities throughout the country that are being tested via this method. It's a reliable source of data. It's not something which has yet been picked up or reported on in the media, but it's something that we're continuing to do in partnership with Capital Region Water. And it should act as a barometer as we move forward in the coming months as to whether things are getting better or whether the spread is continuing. So keep in mind, 1 out of 20 people in the city of Harrisburg likely currently have coronavirus. That is a very large number. And the reason it is so large is because so many people that have the virus are asymptomatic, meaning they're not showing signs of having it. They may not even know that they have contracted coronavirus, yet they can still spread the virus. And on a personal note, I know that many people starting in yellow, and perhaps even this weekend, as my own family may be seeing elderly relatives or others for the first time in quite some time. And we have to be careful that we don't spread the virus to them. That's partly what wearing a mask is about and what social distancing is about. It is about realizing that you may have the virus and be asymptomatic, and protecting against the spread, the very easy spread of that, to people who are vulnerable or older, and who could be deeply, deeply affected by the virus and easily catch it. Also wanted to make an announcement today, and we'll continue to keep you updated in the weeks to come about what we're calling the BioBot data. That's the name of the company that does this epidemiological testing. Again, I think it will begin to show us when we see a decline, and we haven't seen that decline yet. We want to announce today that as we turn back to yellow, we will begin again this coming month here in June to reinforce and to begin ticketing and doing parking enforcement in the city of Harrisburg. We're going to be sending out a press release today saying that starting on the 15th, which is about 2 weeks away, Monday the 15th, we will begin parking enforcement. Now that includes at meters. It also includes in residential districts, and it includes in street sweeping zones. And we are doing this in partnership with Park Harrisburg and also in partnership with CRW, and they will be returning to street sweeping also on the 15th of June. So people have 2 more weeks to get used to this and to realize that they will have to move their cars and that parking enforcement will return. We want to thank Park Harrisburg for working with us and giving us such a long period of time. In some cities, parking enforcement continued right through the crisis. In Harrisburg, we've had a moratorium now for several months, and it's only just now returning. In addition to the parking enforcement officers themselves now being able to go back to work, we're also going to see the resumption of street sweeping. So I know this has been a concern in many neighborhoods in the city where trash is really piled up in the streets, but the street sweepers will be back the week of the 15th, courtesy of CRW. Now, some positive news. As we move into yellow from red here in Dauphin County, we have a new proposal and partnership that we're planning with the Downtown Improvement District and some of our restaurants in Restaurant Row. And you're going to hear more about this to come. But it's going to be called Saturday Night in the City. And every Saturday in the month of June, we are going to be shutting down 2nd Street and allowing outdoor dining and outdoor table service and festivities throughout the Downtown Improvement District area, really from 2nd Street, from Market all the way down to Pine Street. A number of restaurateurs will be putting out additional tables. There'll be an additional police presence. The DID will be out with its ambassadors, and there'll be music and other things. It's an attempt to allow people to come back and support some of their favorite restaurants and businesses that have really been hit hard by this crisis, but to do it in a safe way, allowing people to spread out in some of these public spaces. It will be officially from 6 to 10 p.m. each Saturday night in June, although we'll shut the streets down a little before that and open them back up a little after that. And if it works well, we are open to entertaining other requests from other restaurants throughout the city for additional types of street closures. This is not something that we are going to charge businesses for. This is something that we're going to do as a support measure for these businesses, and in an effort to allow them to have additional space to spread out into the streets and the neighborhoods as they can see fit to hopefully get back to business. So that is coming. It's an exciting partnership and program, and look for more information from the DID. This would be every Saturday this month in June. I also wanted to give folks an update on Arts Fest, which happened this past weekend. If you watched last week's show, you know that we had a number of vendors on and people were very excited. And we learned that Harrisburg was really one of the only cities in the country that was taking a summer festival and turning it online rather than simply canceling. We had over 14,000 people view those videos, the music videos and the how-to videos and the craftsmanship videos online. We had over 7,000 people go into the actual artist marketplace and browse the wares of many of our artisans. It was actually so successful that I think in the future, when we are back live, so to speak, and outside, we'll still maintain something of a hybrid presence. A lot of the vendors are appreciative of the ability to draw traffic to their individual websites, and it was a lot of fun. And on a personal note, I hope you were able to cook at home or take those dancing lessons with your kids or acting lessons and everything else that we did. And I alluded to this last time, but for the 4th of July, we will be back in person with fireworks along the river, and there'll be more of an announcement to come on that in the future. But Arts Fest was a great success. All right, we are going to turn now to our first guest, who is Superintendent Christopher Selmer with the Harrisburg School District. And we want to begin on a somber note, and that is over the past week, as many of you already know, we lost a young man, 14 years old, who was a student at Roland Academy here in the city of Harrisburg. His name was Tyrone Gibson, and he was shot and killed. It's a tragedy. I want to extend our heartfelt condolences to his family and to all those that knew him. But it obviously is having special ramifications in the Harrisburg School District and among his classmates. And I wanted to start, Superintendent, with just the question of, I know we're in this virtual world, but how are we providing things like grief counseling and reaching out to our students in the aftermath of this tragedy? and basically what is the school district doing to help its kids?
Good afternoon, Mayor. Thank you for having me on again today. As you said, such a tragic event that occurred this week, and to lose a young man, 8th grade, it's just horrific. And like you said, our condolences go out to a family. He had a number of siblings that are in the Harrisburg School District. So it's about Roland Academy. They're, obviously the school is hurting right now with this tragedy, but it also is there's an effect across the entire school district. So Miss Marianne Peters is our Director of Pupil Services. She also leads our crisis team with the school district. So she's been in contact with Dauphin County, and they've been putting together supports in this virtual world. Certainly it makes it much more difficult, admittedly, than if we were in school and we had our students in the building. We would set up our normal crisis rooms, etc. Not only for our students, but for our staff who are also hurting, the teachers that worked with him during his time at Roland. So it's a significant, it's just a tough week for Harrisburg School District. But we're fortunate that Miss Peters, she's experienced in this area. And we're fortunate that Dauphin County has been, as always, stepping up to support us, especially during this very unique time that we're in this virtual world. But we're doing the best we can, and certainly if there's anything we are missing as a school district, our phone number's active. It's being checked daily. You can email the COVID-19 at hbgsd.us email box, because again, we're trying to do our best in this virtual world, but certainly it makes it much more difficult to really assess that we're reaching all the students that truly need support during this very difficult time.
Thank you for that. It's such a tragedy, and I know we're appreciative of all that you're doing and all that you've done to do outreach up to this point. When we spoke last on a more positive note, there was going to be a sort of drive-through sign distribution. I've noticed some of these signs throughout the community. Can you give us an update on that?
Yes, this past Saturday we had what we call our sign and drive event, where we invited our seniors, obviously adhering to all social distancing requirements, to come to John Harris campus, where we were able to, give them their sign. They were in their cars and they were able to move through the campus in a safe and orderly fashion. Mayor, it was a wonderful event. We had over 180 students and families come out. They decorated their cars, honking their horns. The staff was cheering for them. We had our board members there volunteering. Dr. Samuels, our receiver. Commissioner Carter was able to come out and spend time with us. So it was just a really nice event to honor our seniors during this difficult time. It went so well, Mayor, that I anticipate this could be a new tradition for the Harrisburg School District each and every year moving forward. That was how positive and well received the event was.
Well, we're very glad to hear that. Can you give us an update on graduation plans? It's that season.
It is. So obviously things have certainly changed. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the show with COVID, it's certainly a positive that we're moving in the yellow, but obviously that still brings significant restrictions on group gatherings. Even if we transition in the green over the summer, to my understanding, there's still restrictions of you could have no more than 250 individuals in any one area. So we are making alternate plans that will be announced in the coming days. It is important that we distribute our diplomas to our students, and that we do it in a way that adhering to social distancing, but still recognizing their amazing accomplishment as becoming a graduate of the Harrisburg High School. So more details to follow. Our high school team, our administrative team, along with they have a graduation planning team that works on these events, are putting the final touches, and then the information will be forthcoming. But we are in the middle of June planning to do 2 different events for our seniors, which will include a kind of a hybrid graduation type event.
Thanks for that update. I saw the state legislature this week is considering passing basically a stopgap budget that would fund everything through November in a sort of short-term fashion. I think it would mean no funding cuts in the short term, but it also doesn't provide a lot of long-term stability because they're going to be coming back again in November, December to pass a new budget. How does that affect you all at the district, especially with your own budgeting needs?
Well, for the school district, part of that budget process, as you mentioned, they are, and I believe it's moving to Governor Wolf's desk, is a 5-month stopgap budget. But for education, specifically K to 12, we would have a full year budget as part of that final package. So it would be a flat funded budget for the school district, which actually ties directly into what our budget modeling that we presented in May indicated. So we will be flat funded at our 18, 19, 20 levels, but we've been preparing for that. And so we're just happy. We're happy that it is finalized, because there's been a lot, or will hopefully be finalized at the governor's signature. So that way we have that stability in our planning model. We still have other pieces to work through. We're still working through the CARES money and how that will be allocated within our budget. And then my understanding is, and again, as you can probably attest to, Mayor, the information is very fluid. That there's also going to be some one-time funding for school districts related to safety and security. How do you bring students back, and the requirements of supplies, et cetera, that may be needed to operate school next school year, whatever that may look like on a traditional model, a hybrid model, et cetera. So I'm still trying to finalize the details on what that funding would mean for the Harrisburg School District. But my understanding is part of the budget process is we would have a full year of funding as part of that. What is, for every other entity would be a 5-month stopgap budget.
Good to hear. Good to hear there's that level of certainty for all districts, including Harrisburg. And I assume, since that's what you're expecting, that further will reinforce the lack of a tax increase for city residents moving forward for this year. We'll see where we are after the stopgap budget and as we move into next fiscal year. But for now, no tax increase, so that's positive. And is there any update on the device distribution? Have we completed that now, or is there's still an ongoing distribution going on for Harrisburg students?
Yes, we're actually going to do an additional distribution at the end of next week for grades 3 and 4. That most likely will be our final distribution as we head into the summer. We were, as I mentioned a few times, awarded a grant, continuity of education grant. So we are working to procure devices for K1 and 2, which would be tablets, but they have not arrived yet. So for our summer planning, we're going to look at K1 and 2 without device distribution for the enrichment of the children in grades K1 and 2, but grades 3 through 12 would have a mix of the utilization of the technology that we're distributing. So that most likely will be our last distribution. In addition, if students still need devices in other grades and haven't had a chance to pick those devices up, they are more than welcome to come to this final distribution, which will be announced, and it will be happening at the end of next week.
Wow, that's really impressive that you've made it all the way 3 through 12. That's incredible. Do you have an estimate as to exactly how many devices that have been distributed over the course of the year here?
Yeah, so we're for our high school level, we distributed well over 70% of our total student high school student body, which was around 1,200 students, and then for K to 5, sorry, 5 to 8. We're probably around a 50% distribution rate. So that's why I'm stressing that if there are students that just haven't had a chance, or their families haven't had a chance to make it to a prior distribution, please come out next week, because we'd love to see that number closer to 75, 80% distribution rate at our middle level. And so again, we still need to continue to push to get that technology into our students' hands.
Okay, great. Thank you. And do you have any final comments you'd like to share with the viewing public?
No, there will be additional details forthcoming for our summer enrichment activities that the academic team has been working diligently on. So certainly we'll have additional updates in the coming weeks regarding summer enrichment and support for our students. And my last comment is we are still working on the start of next school year and what that may or may not look like. And we're anticipating guidance from the Pennsylvania Department of Education within the next probably 7 to 10 business days, which will help finalize the planning and the parameters around the planning. One of my understanding is that the legislature is also looking at a relaxation of mandates for number of hours and number of days, similar to what they did with Act 13. So that will be an important legislative process change that we will need because we are going to need flexibility next school year, not knowing and you mentioned it about the status of the pandemic and through your efforts and of tracking that data. 1 in every 20 in the Harrisburg community is significant. Yep. To the point you made at the beginning of the show, Mayor. And that's the type of data we need to take into consideration as a school district with whatever plans we put in place for the start of next school year. But we have to ensure the safety first and foremost of our students and of our staff.
Well, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Appreciate those updates, and we will be in constant communication over the next months, and we appreciate you coming on. We're going to turn next to Jerry Fieser, who is the Director of Elections and Voter Registration here in Dauphin County. And Jerry, we're really glad you could join us. As I hope people know, or they're gonna find out here soon, we've got a big election coming up this coming week, and there are a lot of changes that are having to take place, not just from the standpoint of the health emergency, but also new voting machines, new polling places. So let's go slow and sort of unpack some of that. And let's start with given the health emergency, what are we doing? What can people expect that's going to be different when they go to the polls this coming Tuesday?
Well, thank you, first of all, Mayor, for having me on. With the COVID situation, Dauphin County Commissioners moved forward, and we've secured personal protection equipment that will be provided to all of our poll workers, face shields, masks, hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, things like that. We will continue to maintain cleanliness in the environment where the voters will go to vote. We will have hand sanitizer bottles there that voters can use coming in and leaving. We encourage all voters, if you really want to, bring your own pen, because we have a paper ballot now this time. So voters should consider bringing a ballpoint pen of black or blue ink. That's the best thing to use. And we are going to provide, of course, plenty of pens at each polling location. The new voting system is paper-based. It's one of the ones that we chose because of the longevity of this new format. It has the least hurdles for some of the opponents of different systems that were available for selection, and it has a uniformity. So voters will go in just like they always did, go to the appropriate poll book, present their name, they'll find them, the poll workers will find them in the poll book, they'll sign the poll book, and then they'll be given either a Democrat or Republican ballot based on their registration. They'll go to a table where they'll have a privacy booth that they can sit and fill out their ballot as they deem appropriate. and then we'll be able to deposit their ballot in the scanner. It's pretty much like anything you would putting into a feeder. You just go up, there's a green tray, you'll lay your ballot on there and just gently push it in, and then the rollers will kick in and they'll pull it in, scan it, and give the voter a green check if everything is correct. If the voter made a mistake by overvoting in a particular office, they'll be alerted to that so that they can either correct it or just go ahead and accept the ballot as presented. The ballot will then drop into a ballot box at the base of the scanner, and those ballots will then be secured at the end of the night and brought back to the county. And we're all going to work through it. But even more new in a way is the whole mail-in ballot proposition, which was something the General Assembly approved last year. And we've seen about 40,250 Dauphin County voters avail themselves of this opportunity by offering to vote by mail. And so far, we've had about 25,500 ballots come back. And we will continue to accept those ballots right up until 8 p.m. on Election Day. We do have a drop box out in front of the County Administration Building here at 2 South 2nd Street, right at the intersection of 2nd and Market. Voters can, if they get their ballot and don't want to rely on the post office, given the tight delivery schedule, they can come down here and drop that in there, and we check the box frequently. So those are some of the new things. Of course, with polling places, Mayor, you and I have had this conversation for over the last 3 years or so. We've had to move some of our polling places due to ADA compliance issues as presented by the U.S. Department of Justice. And then there have also been some recent polling place changes that were necessitated because the former hosts no longer wanted to serve. So, since about 2016, we've moved about 13 polling places in the city. We tried to get as many of them done last year so that voters could be accustomed to those polling places changes coming into this presidential cycle. But we still had to move 3 this year because of some issues with COVID and also with one site no longer being available. We've mailed out postcards to all the voters of those districts, and we will be posting notices on the old polling locations in case someone just by routine goes back to their old location. So that's kind of what we've been up to, and we've got a lot more to go till we get done with this.
Well, thank you, Jerry. That was a lot of information, very useful. And let's see if we can dig down into some of it here. Let's start with the experience for the voter when going to the polls. Now, you're telling them that they should consider bringing a pen. That's good advice. I assume you are recommending that people wear a mask. Is wearing a mask a requirement? Okay, go ahead.
It is not a requirement. Voters cannot be disenfranchised or turned away because they don't wear a mask. We are encouraged them, of course, because as you were pointing out in your earlier presentation, and as the governor and Dr. Levine have been talking about, it's just best practices. It's being courteous to your neighbors as well as protecting yourself as to wear a mask. But for obvious reasons, constitutional, we cannot require people to wear the masks, but we're certainly encouraging them as a courtesy to their neighbor and as just a precaution.
Great. And can you talk about what are we going to be doing to encourage social distancing, especially if we see a backup or longer lines?
I mean, people by now are very accustomed to the social distancing. People will just be encouraged, to stay the 6 feet apart. Many of our polling places, we will be proactively putting the spacing between each of the voters once they get their ballot and go to a table to sit down. So those will be spaced out, the appropriate social distancing. As people stand in line, I mean, most people are accustomed to that now, to just giving some space between each person. This may require the judge to limit the number of people who come into the building, just again to try and help with the social distancing requirements.
Right, and this is let's talk about the new ballot, because this is a big change. We're used to in Dauphin County, as you know, and I think all of our viewers know, voting electronically, not having to do a paper ballot. So, can you talk a little bit about why the change was made? I know that I was able to participate along with many other people in sort of some workshops that tested a lot of technology. So, but also how this particular ballot was chosen. So, why the change, and then why this particular type of ballot?
The impetus for the change was basically the governor and his administration entered into an agreement with the Jill Stein committee from the 2016 presidential primary that forced a change of voting systems in Pennsylvania. And in fact, the Department of State earlier this year decertified the system we had been using for 30 some years as being a viable voting system. So the commissioners and I looked at all the voting systems that were available and certified for use. We looked at some of the costs. We looked at some of the extensive technology that was necessary to support. We looked at the ease for which the poll workers would be able to set up the equipment, and ultimately cost. So the system that we selected, I think, has the greatest longevity potential. We don't like to buy new voting systems every 3, 4, 5 years. Dauphin County used one for 30 plus years and it worked well. So we selected a system which is going to be a very simple system. You go in, you sign at the poll book, everything stays the same as far as that's concerned. But then once you are signed in, you are given a paper ballot. This primary, you'll be given your primary party, whether it's Republican or Democrat. And then you will just go down through the ballot and select the candidates of your choice by simply filling in the bubble next to the candidate that you support. Voters are going to want to make sure that they do read the instructions, because there are some offices that you can vote for more than one, but there's a limit. For example, this primary ballot, we have the offices of delegate and alternate delegate for the 2 major party conventions. If you select more than you're permitted, your ballot will be alerted when you put it in the scanner that you've overvoted. Now, you will have a choice to get that ballot back and ask for another ballot and correct that, and then submit a new version, corrected version of your ballot. But so that's going to take a little bit of adjusting to. But it is no different really than when you would receive absentee ballots in the past. So for those voters who've done absentee ballots in the past, it's going to be almost a seamless change. You're still just going to get a paper ballot, and you fill out and mark the candidates of your choice.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So on the one hand, it's probably going to take a little bit longer, I would imagine, to vote. But on the other hand, maybe that'll be counteracted by the number of people that have requested absentee ballots. But let's walk through this a little bit. So if I under the old system, it really wouldn't let you select, push the electric buttons for multiple people if you could only vote for one. Whereas in this system, theoretically, you could fill out multiple bubbles with your pen. You then feed it into the machine. It tells you if the ballot is good or bad. And then if you have to correct it, do you have to start all over, or can you just vote again for just that one race that maybe you accidentally circled too many bubbles?
You'll have to get a new ballot and start all over.
The whole thing. Okay. So, which is understandable, but it could take a little bit longer time. So that's interesting. But people will at least have, it's sort of 2 processes, one filling out the ballot and then the other waiting to make sure that the ballot is read properly by the machine. Yeah. Sure.
There was a lot of concern in the area about certain scanners that were being offered that took much longer to scan and read the ballot. The scanners that we have, it takes about 2 or 3 seconds per ballot. As the voter slips that into the scanner, it scans it 2-3 seconds. Voter is automatically given feedback as to whether everything's okay and the ballot's deposited into the box, or if there is an issue, they're alerted and then they're given a choice. So the scanners that we are using are not going to create the long lines that some other counties had seen.
Good. So we've been reading about a sort of phenomenal response to mail-in ballots, and I wonder, can you share some specifics for the city? Or do you have it broken down only by the county as a whole in terms of the number of people that have collected or have requested mail-in ballots? Yeah.
I will tell you that Harrisburg 1-1 is pretty much leading the gang. They are upwards of, I believe, 80% in requesting
Wow.
based on their voter registration. So it's a very good turnout in that regards. There are some other parts of the city where the requesting rate is lower, but we expect those voters to be able to go to the polls. And those are usually situations where the polls are right next door or they're centrally located, and people still just like to vote in person. And that's their preference. And we fully expect the similar kind of turnouts to 2016. It's just a matter of whether people took the path of going vote by mail or whether they're still going to show up in person.
Well, first of all, congratulations to Shipe Oak for leading the way. That's exciting. And but on a more serious note, I believe we're seeing that statewide, many more Democrats, more than twice as many Democrats have requested mail-in ballots than Republicans. And are we seeing that reflected in the data for the city versus Dauphin County as a whole, in terms of the percentages of people that are requesting or not absentee, but write-in ballots?
Mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
I right now it's probably 2-1 Democratic voters versus Republicans countywide. Obviously, in the city, that with far more registered Democrats, that would even be a greater proportion rate. But in Dauphin County, that's about what we're seeing, about 2-1 Democrat to Republican. I would attribute a lot of that to the fact that there is a contested Auditor General race, there's a contested congressional race, there's a contested state Senate race, and then there's, of course, the delegates. So that's kind of, in my opinion, why the Democrats had so much more to really participate in. And when the mail-in ballots and absentees were first being made available, there were still more than one presidential candidate actively running on the Democratic side. So that I think initially drove a lot of interest in that as well.
Great. Thank you for that. So we mentioned that there are some changes to polling locations in the city. Could you specifically address the locations in Harrisburg that are changing?
This year we have 3 sites, and I'm glad that Mr. Selmer's on here as well, because I definitely want to give a tip of the hat to the Harrisburg City School District. They've been incredible to work with, very responsive, very welcoming, and very helpful. So in Harrisburg 1-1, we had recently moved the voters from the Passage to India to the Pinnacle Health at Paxton and Cameron Streets. Unfortunately, that was being made use of as a testing site for the UPMC Pinnacle Health. So we are moving those voters into Foose Elementary. So when the voters go in, the Harrisburg 1-3, Harrisburg 1st Ward 3rd Precinct, that normally votes in Foose will be on one side of the room, and Harrisburg 1-1 will be on the other side of the room. And then Harrisburg 9-2, the former site, which was a church up, it used to be the South Allison Hill Community Center. A church had moved in there. They recently moved out. We were only made aware of that in February, March. So we moved that one to the Hamilton Health Center. That's a little more centrally located for Harrisburg's 9th Ward 2nd Precinct, and we're very thankful for them. And then recently, Harrisburg 14, we're moving the up area north of Division Street. We're moving that polling place to the Camp Curtin Academy. And again, that's one of the sites that the school district has been very helpful with.
Okay, and then thank you. And then back to the mail-in ballot here. I know a lot of people have requested them, but they have to be in order to count. They have to be received by you by 8 p.m. on election night, right? So at this point, it might be getting a little dicey to put them in the mail. They may not potentially arrive in time. And so my understanding is that there is a drop box at the county building. Can you talk about that and what the proper procedure is for dropping off your mail-in ballot?
First, let's address the one thing I'm seeing right now that I'm concerned about. When voters get their ballot, they're given a return address envelope, they're given a privacy envelope, and they're given their ballot. Read through the ballot, mark your ballot as you wish, put that folded ballot into the privacy envelope first, seal it, and then put that into the return envelope, seal that one. And then if you're concerned, like you said, about delivery schedules here, we do have a drop box out in front of the Dauphin County Administration Building. It's available 24 hours a day. We continually check it several times a day. We'll be down here on Saturday, and I'll be down here a little on Sunday to check the box as well, and then Monday. And we will continue to check it up until Tuesday. At 8 p.m., I will make the final check, and then we will post a notice that this box was checked as of 8 p.m., and no ballots deposited will be counted after that point. So voters do have the ability to come down here to South 2nd Street, intersection of 2nd and Market, and we will allow them to just drop it into that box. There is a security camera, so we're able to provide some level of oversight of what's happening to that box, and we will be checking it regularly and daily.
Okay, yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate that it has to be received by Tuesday. It can't be postmarked, which means if you try and mail your ballot on Election Day, it will not count because it will not be, there's not same-day service by the U.S. Postal Service. Go ahead.
Sure, if I could, Mayor, too.
Yep.
One last thing I forgot is that on the back of the return envelope, they need to sign it and put today's date, not their birth date. A lot of people think it's birth date. It's their name and the date that they signed it. So that way, we can verify that they're the ones that voted their own ballot. So that needs to be done before they deposit it.
Great. And then I guess as a final question, so you're going to have to there are going to be a lot of potential mail-in ballots that you're going to be getting at the last minute. Do you think this is going to slow up the counting and make it harder to get results on election night? And if so, what are you projecting in terms of when we will learn? Yep.
Tonight, we will be able to let everybody know the results of the in-person voting. So all the scanners, the databases from those will be brought back. We will feed those into the system. Those will be uploaded and posted on our website. So everyone will know the results of the in-person voting. But in order to cross-reference the poll books and who voted at the polls with the mail-in ballots that we received, we need to make sure nobody votes twice. So it's going to take us some time to go through that process, double-check everything before we begin opening envelopes and scanning those ballots. So I can tell you right now, we won't start that until the next day at the earliest.
Really?
So we won't start counting mail-in ballots, absentee ballots until Wednesday morning. And how long it will take, I really can't even hazard a guess because I've never had to open 25, 26, 30,000 envelopes, until it's all said and done. So it's going to take a long time. And then anybody who has applied for a mail-in or absentee and hasn't returned it to our office by Tuesday, 8 p.m., and they decide to go to the polls, they will only be able to vote a provisional ballot. So the provisional ballots will even be after we take care of all the mail-in ballots. So there's going to be, I can definitely tell you, it's going to be at least until the following week before we start to have a good sense of what the results are.
Right. Well, I think what you're saying is that statistically speaking, we're not going to know the results on election night, in part because of the high percentage of mail-in ballots. If one of our wards, for example, is 80% mail-in already, and you're not going to count them till the day after, we're not going to know the results. That's a big change for people. and something that we're all going to have to get adjusted to. And of course, the in-person voting results may differ from the write-in results. And again, you've got to factor in these different differentiations in the proportions by party. So it's very complicated. So anyhow, thank you for coming and sharing all that information with us. I think it's incredibly useful, and I think important for the public to know. Is there anything, any final comments you'd like to make people aware of for Election Day?
I would just make sure that I would encourage anybody who has applied for a mail-in or absentee ballot, get it, bring it down to our office, put it in our drop box. And for those voters who do go out to the polls, be prepared for, a little bit of a line potentially, because it's all new. We have a lot of new poll workers because some of our veterans had stepped aside because of concerns over COVID. So we have a lot of new poll workers. We've got a new voting system, and we have a new process. So everybody needs to just be very patient this election.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you again for coming, and thanks for sharing that information. We're going to turn next to Stephen Shope, who is the partnership coordinator, a partnership coordinator at the U.S. Census Bureau. And Stephen, we've just been talking about the importance of voting and the importance of being counted and some of the challenges that come there. But equally important is the process of being counted for the U.S. Census. So I wanted to try and really focus on the various ways that people can fill out the census and what they need to do to be counted. So welcome, and can you talk a little bit about how one can fill out their census?
Sure, absolutely, and like you said, it's equally important as voting that people are counted during the 2020 census, because it's this data that's going to determine not only representation in Congress, but how billions of federal dollars are going to be distributed to states and communities for everything from school lunches to highways, healthcare, infrastructure, education. So it's vitally important that people respond. And in the 2020 census, people will actually, for the first time, have 3 different methods that they get to choose from. They can respond to the survey online, they can respond by telephone, or they can use the traditional paper form.
Yes, so that I think that goes a long way to making it easy for people. Maybe we could talk a little bit about what to expect with each of those. So my understanding is if you call in, first of all, you have the option to find a non-English speaker. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. When you call in, you can speak. There's language support that's available via phone, as well as online, and also we have online language support materials, 57 different languages that people can use those support materials to help them in filling out the forms. In addition to just about every community in Pennsylvania, certainly in Dauphin County and in the city of Harrisburg, we have partners that are also providing some language support as well.
That's great. And so when people call in, do they need to be prepared? What information do they need to have handy in order to make sure that they're counted?
Typically, when somebody's going to respond on behalf of a household, it's good that they have some basic information, birth dates of the folks in the household, certainly sex, age, and ethnic race data. But it's typically people within a household have that most of that information readily available. Birth dates might be something if you have an extended household that you might have to prepare, but typically walking through it, people are usually pretty fluent in the data that's being requested.
And what questions should they expect to be asked?
Well, the census is asking you to account for everybody who is living in your household on April 1st. So in getting that information, they're asking for total number of people in that household, and then for each one of those people to be able to provide a date of birth, a relationship within the household, for instance, spouse, children, But then it's also asking questions about, again, sex, race, ethnicity, and it typically takes somebody to account for a household, 10 minutes for a small household, maybe up to 20 for an extended household, but it's for the impact that you achieve for your community for 10 years, it's certainly worth the investment of time.
And can you address, maybe if people are concerned about why they need to share some of that data, why are you collecting that data other than just the fact of who you are and being counted? Why are you collecting additional information? How is it useful?
Yeah, I mean, decennial censuses have certainly evolved and changed over the years, but in many respects, this is a constitutionally mandated survey. So it's the data that's being collected has been determined to be the data necessary to get a finger on the pulse of the nation's people. And so, certainly there are some things like birth dates that allow us to account for age, but it also helps in processing on the back end to identify duplicates and to be able to resolve those. But this is the only comprehensive survey conducted by the federal government, and certainly by anybody in the United States of America, that really aims to count every single person on U.S. soil, including Puerto Rico. And so it's important that we collect the necessary data that's going to give us a snapshot of America.
From a historical perspective, one of the things that I've always enjoyed in looking at past census records has to do with occupation. And just curious as to why you don't ask occupation, or why we're no longer doing that when that was such a important role of censuses past.
Yeah, certainly. So I suppose, and I share that affinity with you. I love looking at doing genealogy and seeing what my ancestors in the 1800s were doing for a living. I found it quite enlightening. But I think it's not so much that the Census Bureau is no longer interested in those things, but many people may or may not be aware that the United States Census Bureau conducts ongoing surveys. And so even in 2010, when we were doing the decennial survey, there was a long form and a short form, and the long form had a list of additional questions that the short form didn't have. And following the 2010 census, the long form became a separate survey known as the American Community Survey. And so we're still collecting that data in sampling surveys throughout America on an ongoing basis. It's just not data that's collected during the decennial.
Well, thank you for that. And so just for the benefit of the public and to confirm, because I know there was some controversy around this originally, there is no question on the census regarding citizenship, correct?
That is correct. There is no question on the decennial census about citizenship.
And the data which individuals share, is that in turn shared by the Census Bureau with other departments of government?
So people can be absolutely confident that when they fill out the 2020 census form that their data is not being shared. No personally identifiable information is being shared with anyone, not with local agencies, not with the IRS. We share personally identifiable information with no one. The data that is collected will be published in a variety of data products, but only as aggregate data. People will not be able to determine any information about you based on the information you provided on that survey. So it is an ironclad confidentiality clause that is part of the U.S. Code that absolutely forbids this data from being shared.
Thank you. One of the reasons I mentioned the census by phone option in part is because we know in Harrisburg we have limited internet accessibility for large numbers of our population. The school district has encountered that very recently with the switch to virtual learning, the need for distribution of devices and just generally how to connect in virtually in this. So it's good to know that voting by phone is an option. question. But how has coronavirus affected the ability of canvassers to go out in an old-fashioned sense and knock on doors and interview people physically in their homes?
Well, the information, the operation, I should say, that you're referencing is called non-response follow-up, and that operation has not commenced yet. That'll happen this summer, where anybody who hasn't yet responded will begin to have enumerators come to their household and try to enumerate right there on the doorstep. So we haven't begun that operation yet. I can tell you that the operation that we've just wrapped up in the Harrisburg area is called Update Leave, and we resumed operations under the new conditions of presented to us by COVID-19. So Update Leave didn't require interaction with the public other than hand delivering a packet to a household. Didn't require any interaction. So we are operating under the guidelines provided by Governor Wolf. Our staff are, wearing personally protective equipment, face masks, observing social distancing, washing their hands. We're washing our equipment, things like that. But so it hasn't impacted our operations in the sense that we've had to interact with people publicly as of yet. And we're hoping that, as things continue to improve in Pennsylvania and that operation commences, in either case, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it safely, putting first the health and safety of our employees and the public. But there are certainly ways that we'll be able to do that, even on a doorstep, observing those the requirements set forth by Governor Wolf.
Okay, yeah. So I understand that that type of canvassing hasn't happened yet, and there's still time for people to fill out the ballots that they've either received by mail or go online or call. But surely you've given some thought to what canvassing would look like this summer, and and what people would expect and how it might be different from years past. Because I know, with the count being so important and with the desire to reach every individual in the city, it's going to be necessary. Can you talk at all about what you expect things to look like and how it might be different, given that we will be either in a yellow or will under any circumstance this summer, we will still have to be very cognizant of coronavirus?
Sure, I can tell you that at all levels of the U.S. Census Bureau, we've been extremely happy with the self-response rates, at least on average across America and certainly in Pennsylvania, because they've been surpassing milestones quicker than they did in 2010. And in spite of all the obstacles that COVID-19 presented, we've been reaching milestones ahead of what had been estimated. So in that respect, I think sometimes having people at home and having the availability to actually go online or pick up a phone has actually been a benefit to getting a complete count for the census. But when I look at Dauphin County and certainly the city of Harrisburg's response rates, there's some work to be done there. I mean, the national response rate right now, as well as the Pennsylvania and even the Dauphin County response rates, are all above 60%, whereas the city of Harrisburg's still just above 40%. So, and we do see in those numbers that of the 42.4% that have responded, we see that there was a 29.9% internet response rate. That means those folks actually did it over the internet. So we're definitely seeing that the need for efforts beyond just trying to encourage people to respond via the internet, and you've outlined some of those on this forum. But we do have partners in the area. We have partners that are out trying to get the word out to improve those response rates and reach people where the need has been determined to be. But as we look ahead to operations, we're definitely the operations, what needs to be conducted for non-response follow-up. We don't see that there's going to be a lot of changes, certainly not in Pennsylvania, given that even if we had to operate under the restrictions in a county that, for instance, was still in the red zone, we would still be able to conduct that operation safely and within the guidelines set forth by the government.
Okay, I was just I was trying to get at what that would look like, but we can move on. And it is true that okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, for the non-response follow-up, an enumerator is going to have a handheld device, and each day their workload is going to show up on that device, and they're going to go in a very methodical fashion, following the most efficient route provided to them on that device. They're going to knock on doors, and they're going to present themselves as representatives of the United States Census Bureau, and they're there to help them complete the form for the 2020 census. And the person answering the door is going to be able to just literally from a 6-foot distance be able to answer the questions while the enumerator enters them into the handheld device right there for them. In the event that the person is not available, they can't do it, they don't have time, the enumerator is going to leave a form with them with a unique ID that says, hey, if you want to go online, you can use this ID. If you want to call a number, you can use this ID. And if you choose to use a paper form, you're still able to do that as well. And then they'll part ways. But until that household actually responds, a enumerator is going to continue to make attempts to show up at that house up to 6 times to get that survey completed.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any general thoughts as to why Harrisburg's response rate is down, and at least in terms of comparing this year to previous censuses?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that question. I'm sorry.
My assumption is that response rates are down in urban centers and elsewhere where there is limited internet access, and where the coronavirus has made interaction a little more difficult. Do you think that explains why the response rate for Harrisburg is lower than in censuses past?
Yeah, it would be difficult to label anything because we see so many different types of landscapes, not only across Pennsylvania, but the 9 states that our office manages the census in. There are a lot of things that the public doesn't necessarily talk about. Is there are other operations other than, hey, folks can receive invitations in the mail and go online and respond or call a number or send in a form. We do count facilities that are part of the group quarters operation in a different fashion. I mentioned the update leave, where if somebody does not have a regular city-style address, that we have to go hand deliver packets to those places. But of the barriers that we typically identify, and we identify them well in advance, that usually results in a low response rate would be, lack of internet accessibility, lack of phone. In fact, early on, because the call centers were impacted by COVID as well, they were slightly understaffed, so people had longer wait times. So there's a variety of reasons that can lead to this. And then there's, certainly people who are still, word hasn't gotten to them how, the importance of the census. But when we look at Harrisburg, and by the way, we have a partnership specialist, Angela Gregg, who works very closely with the folks in the city of Harrisburg and Dauphin County. And, they're continually on a daily basis looking at these response rates, identifying the tracks where they're at, and within each individual track, trying to identify what may be the cause or what may be the barrier that's preventing these folks from responding. So I wouldn't label all of the city of Harrisburg's problems can be explained in a single sentence, but that there are some unique conditions that exist within the tracks, some of them being non-English speaking communities. And so they're using a very diverse approach to addressing that at a track level.
And you're confident that will be addressed even amidst the coronavirus epidemic in such a way that will allow us to get an accurate count?
Yes, I mean, our aim is the most complete and accurate count possible. And, even in spite of COVID-19, we have seen partners just really step up and go above and beyond and even have a heightened sense of the importance of the 2020 census, and are doing their absolute best to make sure that the people in Dauphin County and the city of Harrisburg are counted without a doubt.
Okay, and then I guess as a final question, we are moving here, or we've just moved here in Dauphin County to yellow. People are starting to get out more. Some folks are returning to work, and businesses starting to open. Are you hiring? And how does one apply for a job with the Census Bureau, and what opportunities currently exist?
Absolutely. So, folks interested in working for the 2020 census can simply go online to 2020census.gov/jobs. They can fill out an application there, and there are jobs. Harrisburg actually has one of our area census offices located in it. So somebody who applies online could be considered for office or field jobs because you have the availability of both within proximity to your city. So, yeah, they could be offered a variety of positions. The one that's going to be in greatest demand will be the enumerators that conduct the non-response follow-up work because it is the largest operation. But like I say, anybody interested, it's a single application, and when you submit that, you're not applying for a single position, but rather you're in a pool to be considered for any and all of the positions. And there's a separate, in the same process, you're offered the ability to take a second assessment if you want to be considered for supervisory positions as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Shope. And so the census is hiring, and it may be an opportunity for Harrisburg residents that are looking to transition back into employment now. I want to turn to Jeffrey Knight, who is the Director of Planning for the City of Harrisburg and has helped with our complete count committee here. And Jeffrey, I just thought we should get the local perspective on this, and maybe you could talk a little bit about why the census is important from a planning and public policy perspective.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor. So from a planning perspective, the importance of the census extends well beyond just what the Planning Bureau does into really all of the departments of the city. While the Planning Bureau certainly uses this data on a continual basis, especially things like, for example, number of people in the household can give us an idea of whether our need for family-sized units is increasing or stable or decreasing, and how that factors into, for example, land development plans that may come through proposing new housing units. The other departments in the city also utilize this data in a variety of ways. The Housing Bureau, of course, needs to know exactly how many people there are and whether they're homeowners or renters, because that can influence where money from the CDBG that they get every year goes. Does it go towards home improvement projects like fixing furnaces or fixing roofs, or should it go to rental assistance and things of that nature? So it's not just planning, capital P, kind of what our department does, but it's also planning for all the departments here citywide. And it's really critical that we do get a accurate count of the citizens we have, not just overall from the city's perspective, to get as many, to ensure we have as accurate a count as possible, but where everybody is located geographically within the city. Certainly, we have, I think, 14 census tracts here in the city, and knowing where our community is growing lets us know where the need is for potentially new development or for new investment, and helps us to ensure that our funds that we use, that all of the departments in the city here use, are utilized to the greatest effect.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good perspective and a good way to put it. I mean, this is the basic demographic data, which is going to be cited to guide all of our decisions collectively as we move forward. And we determined how to prioritize spending and where to, where we want to see growth. And how we can effectively help those in need in the city. All of that is relying on this basic data. Can you talk a little bit about what you and others on the Complete Count Committee have done to help get the word out and publicize the census so far?
Yeah, one of the one of the initial steps that was taken were we participated in a lot of meetings at the county level, at the state level, even going to Keystone Building over on North Street to participate in those updates on what various municipalities were doing, what the state was doing as far as getting the word out, but also in attending conference calls in the lead up to April 1st to ensure that we were up to date on what kind of outreach was going on. We've also been coordinating both with our internally with our communications department to ensure that we're getting the word out through our various social media feeds, in forums such as this, through our monthly digital newsletter, to not only provide updates on why this is important and to promote the census, but also to direct people how to engage with it and to complete the census count. Obviously, the COVID-19 situation has made it difficult to do as any really in-person kind of engagement with the community. But I think hopefully as we transition into a period where there is a bit more safety in doing group gatherings and in having face-to-face interactions, we can do things like set up booths or set up laptops in something like City Hall here, or in the Public Works building, or in coordination with, for example, the Dauphin County Public Library System, to have individuals on hand who may not have, or have individuals on hand to help those who may not have internet access or may not feel comfortable going through the process if they have questions that are keeping them from, reaching out via phone or accessing the census online. So we do want to have a physical presence spread geographically throughout the community, and we're beginning to develop a strategy for doing that, so that as we transition back into the green phase and eventually beyond that, we'll be able to have community stations where we'll be able to have we'll be able to help people face to face, and to be able to answer any questions they may have and guide them through the process.
Great, and that speaks to the fact that while we are a little behind right now in our count, there's still plenty of time to catch up, and the situation on the ground is improving, at least in terms of moving from red to yellow. Can you talk a little bit about the deadline? So when is the last possible moment for somebody to be counted? How much more time do we have?
So that situation, as I understand it right now, is a bit fluid, as most things are. In a normal census year, the census is delivered by the end of the year, December 31st, and the counts are usually completed, well before that, usually during the end of the summer. Currently, as I understand it, the Census Bureau is leaving the window open to complete the census through October 31st. So we still have several more months in which the public can go online or pick up a phone, or eventually come to meet us in person throughout the community, in which they can complete the census. Additionally, I believe that they're going to begin doing the door knocking phase on August 11th, I think, is the most recent date that I read. And all of these dates, again, are still somewhat fluid. And as I understand it, the U.S. Census Bureau has asked the U.S. Congress to grant some extensions on some of these timelines, given all of the situation that's out there, because they're not anticipating having everything ready by December 31st, as they usually do. So these dates may even get extended further than what they are now.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And just as a final note, do you have any final thoughts or messages you want to convey to the public about the importance of the census?
Just that I think Mr. Shope covered a lot of the issues earlier. This is, a constitutional mandate. It affects our representation in Congress. It affects how voting districts are drawn throughout the state. But probably most important to the residents of Harrisburg, it is a critical part of the funding formula that communities receive from the federal government every year. As he noted, Department of Transportation, Department of Education, economic development, HUD. So there are a number of different avenues through which federal funds flow to the city of Harrisburg. And from what I understand, it's about $2,200 per person per year in federal funds is about the average across the country. So that means for every person that goes uncounted here in the city of Harrisburg, that'll be $2,200 less dollars we receive a year from these various sources. And obviously, we depend on these. Our community depends on these. Our residents depend on these funds every year to ensure that we're doing the best for the community that we can. And so even one single person or one single household could have a huge impact on the types of resources that this city has, not only next year, but over the next 10 years going forward. I timed myself doing the online version, and it took me 2 minutes and 49 seconds to do. Now, I'm a single person household, but multiply that per individual, it's really not a huge time commitment. It's very easy to do. And especially with the online portal, it's very accessible to those who do have internet access. But with the phone option too, there are other options for the public to complete the census.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey, and thanks. That's a very interesting statistic to end on. Very interesting to think about $2,200 a year lost potentially in money that could benefit the community if people aren't counted. And so thank you for joining us. Thank you for all that you do, and we will continue to push this issue, educate folks, and encourage participation in the census as we move forward throughout the summer and into the fall. And again, a reminder, this Tuesday, of course, is Election Day, and we want to encourage people to participate in that democratic process as well. Moen, lots of information today, lots to absorb, and I know we'll put the phone numbers and the contacts and the websites up on the video when it airs. But do we have any questions from the public?
Thank you, Mayor. You're absolutely right. A lot of information. Thank you to our guests for that. In fact, we had a few questions come in. All of them have been answered throughout the course of the discussion. There is one point I know that there was mentioned regarding the phone number or the ability to dial in via phone or the website. So I just wanted to reiterate those specific methods. 2020census.gov is the online way to submit the census. And the option of completing the questionnaire by phone is 844-330-2020. So 844-330-2020 is the phone number for those that want to call in with their submission.
Great. Thanks, Moen. Thanks for reiterating that. And I want to thank everybody again for watching from home. Another great community conversation. We will continue this as we move forward every Friday at noon. Please continue to join us. In the meantime, stay safe, enjoy safely the outdoors, and enjoy the transition both into the summer and from red to yellow here in Dauphin County. Don't forget to vote, and don't forget to be counted for the 2020 census. Have a great day.